Hopefully in not too long, we'll be on that side to make sure people have the opportunities to succeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Regina Louvain will have 5 minutes for questions coming to him once we return or we come back to the debate. Right now we'll have to break for question period as well. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. Honourable Deputy, the honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The drought is over. Not only did the Bombers win the classic Banjo Bowl this year, but we won the Grey Cup, Mr. Speaker. We did. In the Western semi-final, the Bombers defeated the favoured defending champions, the Calgary Stampeders, and that was in Calgary. From there, the Blue and Gold travelled to Regina for the Western final, where we saw the home of Rider Pride and Gaynor the Gopher, and they did us proud, Mr. Speaker, and they won that game, which advanced us to the Grey Cup game. Mr. Speaker, what a game it was. Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats 33-12, and what a game it was. It was a near perfect game. Offense, defense, specialty teams, Mr. Speaker. It was a well-played game. Mr. Speaker, Winnipeg's local hero, Andrew Harris, became the first player in CFL history to win the Grey Cup's most outstanding player and the most outstanding Canadian award. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For the W.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, since my election as the Member of Parliament for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, I've heard from constituents, mayors and chiefs about water levels in the Bay of Quinte. Many believe these historically high water levels are due in part to the International Joint Commission's Plan 2014. Since this policy was adopted by the IJC, Lake Ontario has flooded in 2 of the last 3 years, hurting countless communities and homeowners, including the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. Right now, water levels are historically high for this late in the year. Concerns are growing that without immediate action, Ontario will face a catastrophic level of flooding in the spring of 2020. It is becoming clear that without alterations to Plan 2014, Ontario will continue to be damaged by outflow policies being dictated by the IJC. I call on the federal government to acknowledge the apparent issues with Plan 2014 and to initiate an immediate review of the plan to examine the risks posed to communities and homeowners on Lake Ontario and the Bay of Quinte.
Great question.
For Spadina, Fort York.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to rise once again to represent the residents of Spadina, Fort York, and to represent the wonderful and beautiful diverse communities across the waterfront in Toronto. But days ago, residents in my riding gathered on the shore of Lake Ontario to recognize a very somber occasion. Richard, who is properly known as Kevin Fournier, was a person who chose to live in the parks along the waterfront, and unfortunately we came together to mark his passing. He lived in the Music Garden, Little Norway Park, and if you ever walked your dog there, he knew your dog by name, you by name, and was free to share his poetry and his love of the outdoors with you. But unfortunately, despite all of us who tried to help him and find a way forward to get him into housing, unfortunately, he chose to live outside and he passed away in a bus shelter along the waterfront. We as a nation have decided to tolerate homelessness and not solve the crisis. This Parliament has a choice to make. We can end homelessness in this term of Parliament if we decide to do it. Let that be the work of this Parliament, and that be the way we remembered Richard's life. Thank you.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the good people of Winnipeg Centre for electing me to represent our strong and progressive community. Winnipeg Centre has the 3rd highest poverty rate in the country, and lately we have seen increasing rates of violence that has included the murder of innocent children and youth. It is a poverty human rights crisis with a lack of mental health and trauma supports. When you do not look after people, you have a crisis. It's about choices. And this government has consistently chosen to bail out their corporate friends and protect the top 1%. Instead, we have a proposal to pay for the help Canadians desperately need by getting the ultra-wealthy to pay just a little bit more. Mr. Speaker, our community needs support, and it's time that those who earn more pay more so that those who are struggling get the help they desperately need before this crisis gets worse.
The honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Walalan. I come to Ottawa from Nova Scotia, the land of the Mi'kmaq, the people of the dawn. I'm bearing an urgent message from some of my youngest constituents, the students of l'École Acadienne de Truro, who write, "Today around the world, millions of students have taken to the streets, demanding government action to stop the growth of climate change. These young protesters, many of whom are not old enough to vote, are sacrificing their education because they know that without help from all levels of government, there will be no future. We therefore demand a reduction in the use of fossil fuels. Canada has already invested in renewable energy sources, and we must continue. Our goal in writing is to continue to fuel the flame that we know is burning inside you in order to help preserve our way of life before it's too late. Because in the end, climate change has no borders." Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to rise today in this House, having been re-elected by the good people of Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes. With just 10 months between my by-election victory and the general election this October, I have more people to thank for their support than I have time today. But I must thank my wife Amanda, my children, Luke, Emma, Mikhail, and James for their love and their encouragement. I'd also like to thank all of the volunteers and the donors for their support and for their tireless efforts. A special mention to Joan Leahy and Barb O'Reilly for their critical roles in the success of our campaign. The people of my riding have sent me to this place to fight for them, to stand up for jobs, for small businesses, for farms, for seniors, and to cut red tape and to lower taxes. We know that the official opposition, we're the guardian of the confidence Canadians have in public institutions. Conservatives take this role seriously, and we will hold this government to account. That's right. I'm proud to be part of this strong Conservative team. We're ready to deliver for Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for the first time in the 43rd Parliament, and I would like to express my gratitude to my constituents in Vaudreuil-Soulanges for having put their faith in me once again. I also want to begin this session by thanking all the volunteers who gave their time to help our community throughout the year, and particularly during the holidays, whether it's delivering a basket of food for under Meals on Wheels or Le Pont Bridging, collecting and distributing donations, thanks to the devoted Actuel team, ensuring that people can get home safely with the incredible team at Operation Red Nose, or collecting donations for families in need throughout the different food drives. Volunteers are pillars of generosity in our community.
Of people and their families in my community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges will have a healthier and more joyful holiday. And on behalf of this entire House, I say thank you. Great job.
The honourable member for
West Nepean.
Sure. The holiday season is here, a time of giving and sharing with those around us. However, every year during this season, Canadians throw away 540,000 tons of wrapping paper and gift bags, which are not recyclable. This was brought to my attention by the elementary school students at Woodruff Avenue Public School Craft Fair. By creating homemade ornaments, reused gift bags, and compost bags made out of old newspapers, these students are demonstrating how to celebrate this holiday season in an eco-friendly manner. I was delighted to see the drive and dedication of these young entrepreneurs from my riding. Je tiens à féliciter.
I want to congratulate these students for showing leadership in the fight against climate change.
I encourage Canadians to follow the lead of these students and to reduce their waste this holiday season. Merry Christmas.
Bravo. The honourable member for Steveston, Richmond East.
Mr. Speaker, November 24th may be a normal day for Canada, but it was a good day for democracy in Hong Kong. Participation in the district council election was peaceful and orderly. Voters turned out in record numbers and made a clear statement in support of democracy. It was an honor to serve as an independent observer, and from what I saw, execution of the election was open, fair, and transparent. This is a tremendous achievement for a city that has for so long been crippled by turmoil. Here in Canada, democracy, freedom, and the rule of law are essential to our way of life and must be nurtured and protected. As a Canadian immigrant born in Hong Kong, I am truly blessed to be a member of Parliament here in my home country of Canada. I would like to thank the people of Steveston, Richmond East for giving me this opportunity to serve them. And I wish you and all members of this House and your family a Merry Christmas, Joyeux Noel. Thank you.
Bravo. Honourable Member for Nepean.
Speaker, I would like to thank the residents of Nepean for electing me again to represent them in this Parliament. I promise to continue to work hard for them. In particular, I'll focus on the transit, community, and cultural infrastructure requirements of Nepean, in addition to work on creating high-quality jobs for my constituents' benefits. I will also continue to work on affordable housing, securing retirement income benefits, and safeguarding Canada's position in the global knowledge-based economy. I will continue to recognize and celebrate cultures and heritage of all ethnicities, like the recent Hindu Heritage Day on the Parliament Hill. I will also work to encourage new Canadians all across Canada to take active interest in our great democratic process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Carleton.
I'd like to take this moment, Mr. Speaker, my first time commanding the floor, for a full statement to thank the constituents of Carleton for re-electing me. It was an opportunity this last campaign to reach out to countless residents. We knocked on 160,000 doors, and in fact, we even had multiple visits, 3 visits from the Prime Minister to my riding. We were thinking about even setting aside a nice condo so that he could have a place to stay every time he came. But I encourage members of all parties, all members, to come and visit the historic riding of Carleton, once represented by the great John A. Macdonald, a great symbol of Eastern Ontario's thriving mill towns back in the Victorian age. But today, among the most modern places in the world, the people there work hard. They build their communities. They have a strong sense of neighborliness and community effort. It is an honor to represent them. I thank them all, and I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas.
Outstanding.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Yesterday, the people of the United Kingdom went to the ballot box. And, Mr. Speaker, it was a great success for the Conservative and Unionist Party. The world's oldest and most successful political party, our sister party, was re-elected for a 4th mandate, putting Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the helm of a majority government. Despite a history of success, the party of Disraeli, Churchill, and Thatcher notched another new record last night. The Tories are the first government in British history to be re-elected 3 times while scoring an increasing share of the vote every time. This result also reminds us, Speaker, that when elites try to substitute their own judgment for the will of the people will have the final say. And Conservatives are united when they focus on the people. Conservatives will win. Congratulations, Prime Minister Johnson.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood, Transcona.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, what we heard from this government since the renegotiations of NAFTA began is that what we had at each stave, as Voltaire says, is the best of all worlds. Canadians were included in the agreement. And now we have supply management and the aluminum industry that feels neglected. We need transparency. What we have seen today is better than what we saw last year, but this happened after the government told us that it was already the best possible agreement. As New Democrats, we are looking at this agreement carefully. We need to guarantee that Canadians are included transparently from the beginning. In the future, we need to ensure that we can truly negotiate the best agreement possible instead of rushing to any kind of agreement, no matter what it includes. The Honourable Member for Beloit-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Hollywood Critics Association named Denis Villeneuve Director of the Decade. It's the newest height in a career of highs. In his first feature film, 31st of August on Earth, Denis Villeneuve was picked as Canada's representative for the best foreign film at the Oscars. He put the darkest event in our history on film with Polytechnic and the most tragic drama with Incendie. He made his first Hollywood feature film, Prisoners, and stood out for it. He brought Hollywood to us to film Arrival in Montreal and Saint-Fabien. He demonstrated his courage by tackling the Blade Runner sequel, and I can tell you that it's better than the first one. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Villeneuve brings us into his world. And as a fan, I would say that he has really made his mark on the cinema in Quebec and around the world.
For Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
The ghost of Cousineau Past haunts us still on both sides of the aisle. 'Twas just before Christmas and the 6-week-long break, which after 6 days of hard work, all we members must take. The PM could not nestle all snug in his bed any time the election replayed in his head. In votes he'd come second, but of seats he'd won most. He had newfound love for first past the post. Far more voters had liked the Conservative pitch, but we got fewer seats, which is just such a letdown. The Bloc had 32 members, including our Dean, who seems like he's been here since 1915. New Dems really miss Layton's vote-winning flair. They may even miss Thomas Mulcair. We're glad to be joined by our dear friends, the Greens, 3 MPs from 2 coasts. Sadly, no in-betweens. An independent MP is now here from BC, who's got plenty to say about SNC. In a minority, perhaps, the best gift we can give is if we all learn to live and let live.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to rise in the House of Commons for my first remarks, and I would like to thank the residents of Windsor-Tecumseh for putting their trust in me to be their voice in Ottawa. Mr. Speaker, today marks the 38th anniversary of the declaration of martial law in Poland by the communist dictatorship. Thousands of members of Solidarity, the first independent trade union in the Soviet bloc, were rounded up and imprisoned. In the middle of the night, the secret police came to our door and arrested my father. After the crackdown, Canada opened its doors to over 6,000 Polish immigrants and political refugees, like my family, who contributed their skills and energy to building communities across Canada, while at the same time supporting the struggle for freedom in their homeland. Today, we honor the brave spirit of the workers and members of the Solidarity movement and recognize Canada's role in providing safe harbor to those who fled communist persecution. Thank you, Canada. How can we ever thank you enough?
Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thanks to this Prime Minister, many Canadians are being left out in the cold. 13% more people can't pay their credit cards. Half of Canadians are within $200 of not being able to make ends meet, and 27% more working Canadians are having to turn to food banks. All Canadians want for Christmas is a government that's going to take this seriously. When will this Prime Minister change course on the economy?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank the honourable member for her question. Mr. Speaker, we know that many Canadians have seen their household debt levels rise in recent years, in large part due to strength in the housing market. That is why we took prudent actions to address pockets of risk and support long-term affordability. We were also putting more money back in their pockets of middle-class Canadians by cutting taxes and increasing the Canada Child Benefit. Our government will remain focused on making life more affordable for Canadians, especially the middle class and people working hard to join it.
Honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
But, Mr. Speaker, the ghosts of Christmas past past are not going to help Canadians today and in the future. What kind of holidays are the 71,000 Canadians who lost their jobs last month going to have? Or the workers at the GM plant that's closing? Or the thousands in the aerospace industry or at CN Rail that have lost their jobs? Or the over 200,000 in the oil and gas sector who are out of work? The finance minister says he's not worried about the economy. If this isn't enough to worry him, then just what is?
The Honourable Minister for Middle Class Prosperity.
Thank you again to my honourable member for her question. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that despite a strong and growing economy, many Canadians are still facing and having trouble making ends meet. We're firmly focused on creating more good, well-paying jobs for Canadians across the country. We know there's much more work to do, and we will continue to make life more affordable and create more opportunities for middle-class Canadians. I'm looking forward to working with the honourable member and making sure we find ways to grow our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
But, Mr. Speaker, Canada's economy is falling behind, and it's this government's fault. Foreign direct investment has dropped by 56%, chased to our competitors by this Prime Minister. Canada's unemployment rate is significantly higher than the US, the UK, Germany, Japan. Our economic growth is flat while the U.S. is up by 4%. Canada lost 71,000 jobs while the U.S. created 266,000. Canada is on the brink of a made-in-Canada recession. When will this Prime Minister take it seriously and just change course?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank my honourable colleague for her question. Mr. Speaker, with the growing uncertainty around the world, Canada's economy is continuing to remain strong. We are focused on building an economy that works for everyone. Canadians created over 1 million jobs, and unemployment is at its lowest rate in 40 years. 900,000 Canadians were lifted out of poverty, including 300,000 children. We know that there's still work to do, and we will continue to work to make life more affordable and to create better-paying jobs for middle-class Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the member for her arrival at in the cabinet, but she can't say that the Canadian economy is doing well. Last week, 71,000 people lost their jobs, including 45,000 in Quebec. Foreign investment as well, Mr. Speaker, is plummeting. It's 56% lower than last year. That's why 2 weeks ago we asked for an economic update. We only have a few hours in this House before adjournment. Will the government do what it needs to do? In other words, publish this economic update. The Honourable Minister. I want to thank my honourable colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that despite the economic growth in Canada, for all too many families, they are having a hard time making ends meet. We're focused on building an economy that works for everyone. Consequently, Canadians created over 1 million jobs, and unemployment is at its lowest rate. We know there's still a lot of work to do, and we will continue to work to make life more affordable and to create better-paying jobs for Canadians. Between now and Christmas, we will be updating our economic plan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that unemployment is going up in Canada. 71,000 people lost their jobs. Unemployment increased to 5.6%. We're no longer at the head of the G7 countries. In fact, we're much lower down the list, and that's concerning. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate to see that the government is not holding up its parliamentary responsibilities. The economic update should be done here in the House so that ministers can be accountable. Why is the government hiding this economic update, and why won't it enthusiastically table that document here before parliamentarians in the House of Commons? The Honourable Minister. Thank you once again to my honourable colleague for his question. Between now and the holidays, we will be updating our economic plan. But rest assured, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that despite economic growth in Canada, far too many families aren't feeling the effects of that, and they're having a hard time making ends meet. So we will continue to work together to ensure that we take the necessary steps to help Canadians live in a country where the standard of living is high. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, unlike Canada, the Americans know how to negotiate. The American government, which is in a minority position as well, decided to increase its negotiating power. They got the Democrats' priorities through and managed to negotiate things like the price of medication and labor rights. Not so in Canada. Our government decided to go it alone and wasn't strong enough to defend our aluminum workers. And now the government is saying, well, it's this or nothing. Why is the government refusing to see the incredible support in Quebec and to get protections for our aluminum workers? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, of course I want to thank everyone who's involved in the new NAFTA negotiations, particularly the aluminum workers who worked very hard with the government on this. The president of the Aluminum Association of Canada, Jean Simard, said that the new NAFTA would help strengthen Canada's relationship with its main trading partner, the U.S., and he even mentioned the exceptional work carried out by the Trudeau government, and he encouraged everyone to put pressure on the Bloc Québécois to support the ratification of the deal. I'd like to remind members that when they refer to someone, they need to refer to them by their title and not their name. I know that sometimes things slip out in the heat of the moment, but I think this is a good opportunity to remind everyone of that. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Aluminum Association isn't made up of workers only. It's also represented by Rio Tinto. Foreign multinationals like Rio Tinto don't care if their aluminum is made in India or China rather than Quebec, as long as they make money and they can supply the American market through Mexico. Mr. Speaker, that doesn't help Quebec. It doesn't help my region. It doesn't help create jobs for our local workers. Why won't the government fight to protect aluminum workers in the same way it protected steel workers, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, our government has always supported our steel and aluminum workers in Quebec and around Canada. Mr. Speaker, our government fought hard to lift the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, and today the new NAFTA offers extra guarantees for the steel and aluminum industry. Today with this NAFTA, Mr. Speaker, 70% of the aluminum contained in a NAFTA car must come from North America. At the moment, the current NAFTA guarantees nothing, Mr. Speaker. This agreement is better for Quebec and better for all of Canada.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night, Liberals, Conservatives and the Bloc voted against making life better for Canadians. They voted against affordable housing, they voted against a real fight against the climate crisis, and they voted against national universal pharmacare for all. These are all things that Canadians desperately need and want.
So my question is, how can people believe the Liberals when it's clear that they say one thing and do another?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, we all know that no Canadian should have to choose between paying for prescriptions and putting food on their tables. We've already done more than any other government in a generation to lower drug prices, and now is time to take that final step. Sitting down with provinces and territories to implement pharmacare guided by the HoC report. This will build, Mr. Speaker, on steps we've already taken, including new rules on patented drugs that will save Canadians close to $13 billion. We will not rest until Canadians can get and afford the medication that they need.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, more rhetoric, but as people saw yesterday, there's been no real action. The secret agreement with Volkswagen shows that the Liberals are ready to hide their inaction on climate change.
6 meetings with various government departments, including the Prime Minister's office. Volkswagen got a special deal. No other accused gets to speak with the government before striking their plea deal. So my question is, why did the Liberal government and the Prime Minister's office give such special treatment to this massive corporate fraud?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the leader of the NDP for his question, and he's asking about our government's agenda. It's focused on the middle class. That's why since 2015, we have seen over 1 million jobs created, and that is because we're building partnerships with the private sector to bring in foreign direct investment. That is why we're also addressing concerns for middle-class Canadians by investing in measures like the Canada Child Benefit. This has helped lift 300,000 kids out of poverty, and overall we have seen a reduction of 900,000 individuals lift themselves out of poverty. That's our track record, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister wasn't able to reassure aluminum workers when she met with Mr. Malte yesterday. Mexico will be able to use aluminum that wasn't produced or poured in North America. And as long as Mexico doesn't have stringent regulations on imports, those workers will be concerned. Can the government clarify the impact that the new NAFTA will have on our workers in the regions and actually put forward some concrete solutions? The Honourable Minister for Economic Development. Mr. Speaker, of course, we understand that aluminum workers are important to regional economies in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean and across Quebec. That's why we've always been there standing shoulder to shoulder with them. We were there when the Americans imposed tariffs. We were there to defend them and to get those tariffs lifted. We were also there to compensate for the losses associated with those tariffs, and we are there now to ensure that they have access to the American market. Aluminum workers in Quebec can count on our government, and we will continue to have good conversations with them. Thank you.
Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Finance Minister to bring forward a fall economic update to respond to the 71,000 job losses in November.
Hear, hear.
He said no. I asked the Finance Minister to bring in an action plan to help relieve the burden of the half of Canadians who are $200 away from insolvency. He said no again. I asked him to take any action to salvage Canada's declining economy. He said no. We wanted more yes, and we got more no. Mr. Speaker, when will the Finance Minister tell Canadians what he will do to get this economy back on track?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the honourable member for his question and comment. On October 21st, Canadians chose to continue moving forward with an economic plan focused on investing in them and rejected a short-sighted conservative vision of cuts and austerity. Criticizing the state of Canada's economic is not a plan. It does not help people or build resilience in communities across the country. While we will always remain vigilant to any potential risks to our economy, Canada has a stable and resilient financial sector, and we will continue to work on this economy.
Member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals talk about investment. The people who are out of work now would like to know how they can invest for their own future. The people who are $200 away from financial insolvency. The 13% increase in the number of Canadians who have claimed insolvency. All of these people are asking how they will not just invest, but actually pay their bills. How can this government, in good conscience, go for Christmas vacation while so many are suffering so much?
Exactly. The Honourable Minister for Middle Class Prosperity.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Since day one, our government has been working to strengthen and grow the middle class. People want an affordable place to call home. They want a good education for their kids. They want an ability to save for a secure and dignified retirement. That's who we're focused on. And it's why our very first act this mandate is to lower their taxes. I look forward to working with the member opposite as we make life more affordable for middle-class Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Some of the most frightening data that came out recently was that this week with regards to the 7-year high in non-mortgage credit defaults. Now, in simple terms, that means people can't pay their credit card bills. They're up to their eyeballs. They can't pay their bills, so they're putting them on their credit card. Then they can't pay the credit card bill, and then they can't pay the interest, and this problem compounds on top of itself. We would expect the government to take urgent action to unleash our private sector to create jobs and relieve the burden of our workers. Why didn't they do that just in time for Christmas?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, with the growing uncertainty around the world, Canada's economy remains strong. We're focused on building an economy that works for everyone, and consequently, middle-class Canadians have more money in their pockets. We will continue to fund services that support Canadians. And the Canadian economy has one of the best growth records among G7 countries. We know there's still a lot to do, and we will continue to work to make life more affordable and to create better-paying jobs for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for West Nova.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, a challenge that you face when you're a proud Atlantic Canadian is the feeling of being forgotten. And that's the case still today, as the Liberals forgot that Montreal isn't part of the Atlantic region. They appointed an HoC minister from Montreal. Since they took office, the Liberals have never appointed anyone from my region to that position. Mr. Speaker, when will this government start respecting the Atlantic region and give it proper representation that it deserves? The Honourable Minister for Economic Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Listen, I had the opportunity to be in Moncton and Halifax last week to meet with people who work for HoC. And I was supported by my parliamentary secretary from the region to talk about investments there. But I would remind everyone that even though there was an HoC minister under his government, well, they made $50 million in cuts to HoC. So I think that that's not great for supporting a region either. We will be there for the people of the Atlantic region. The Honourable Member for West Nova.
Mr. Speaker, you know, this failed government's failed economic policies have led to the recent news of 71,000 jobs lost nationwide. And this will hit home in my riding, where 200 people at Web.com Centre in Yarmouth will be lost as a result of the company's departure. Being so close to Christmas, this, of course, is devastating. So my question is, what will this government do to reassure those workers?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, I will be supported by a great MP for Matawaska-Restigouche coming from the region to make sure that we make the right investments. Of course, our hearts and our thoughts are with the families of the people affected, and we want to make sure that we create opportunities for them and that we're there while some parts of the country are facing economic downturns. I will be willing to work with my colleague to make sure that we can find solutions for people affected by this decision. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, in anticipation of the Prime Minister's meeting with the Premier of Quebec, I think we should remember that Mr. Legault had asked for companies under federal jurisdiction, such as banks, interprovincial transport companies, and airports, be subject to the French language charter when they are operating in Quebec. This is something that the Bloc Québécois has been supporting for a long time. Quebecers care about the French language, Mr. Speaker. So, will the government hear Quebec on this issue and subject federal companies to the provisions of Bill 101? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we recognize the importance of the French language in the country, particularly in Quebec, and we know that we need to play a role to protect linguistic minorities in Quebec and outside of Quebec. So I will be pleased to work with this House on updating the Official Languages Act in order to protect both of our official languages and to have access to a strong bilingual policy, which is at the heart of our values and our vision for this country. The Honourable Member from Montarville. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly of Quebec was unanimous. Quebecers want a single tax return form. This is feasible without job losses. Premier Legault made such a formal request during the last election. This afternoon's meeting with the Quebec Premier is a good opportunity for this government to finally show some respect for the National Assembly and respect its will. Will the Prime Minister commit to setting up a single tax return form which would be administered by Quebec, since that's what Quebecers want? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the CRA employs many people in Quebec and is a significant economic driver in the regions of Quebec. In Rimouski, in Abitibi, in Shawinigan, and Jonquière, we have always been very clear. We will never jeopardize those jobs. That said, we will continue to work with Revenue Quebec to simplify Quebecers' tax return forms, and our government is ceaselessly improving the services provided by the CRA in order to make a real difference in the lives of Quebecers.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, the Liberals offered up the welfare of residents of British Columbia seniors' homes to a Chinese company with no experience in seniors' care, perhaps as an offering ahead of a free trade agreement that never happened. Since then, that company's been seized by the Chinese government, and today a third Anbon-owned seniors' home has had to have its operations taken over because of deplorable living conditions. How much of these seniors, how much do they have to suffer before the Liberals will act?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable colleague for her question. This is obviously a very important issue, and the safety and well-being of seniors is of utmost priority. As she knows, the provincial government in British Columbia is responsible for health care, and they have put forward a rigorous standard of care on all operators. With respect to the Investment Canada Act, which I'm responsible for, Mr. Speaker, we're monitoring and making sure that those obligations are met, and we will take swift actions if those obligations are not met, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, I would suggest that neglect, abuse, hygiene issues, everything that's led to this takeover is an action that requires some sort of review under the act that he's responsible for. Come on, abdicating responsibility to the provincial government when these seniors are suffering? It's ridiculous. When will he take his responsibility under the act, review this transaction, and make sure that these seniors have a better life?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, we understand that this is very difficult and challenging for the seniors, and we want to make sure that their well-being is of the utmost priority. But with respects to health care, the rigorous standards are applied by the provincial government. They are overseeing the operators, and they will make sure that those obligations are met. But with respect to jobs and the footprint with regards to Cedar Tree, those are legal obligations under the Investment Canada Act, and we will make sure that they follow through on those obligations, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Thank you, Speaker. Veterans Affairs is shutting down mental health services for veterans' families while they create new criteria. Family members are going to have to reapply, and they are terrified because they know that right now Veterans Affairs has a backlog of over 40,000 cases. The Liberal government, in their throne speech, promised better mental health care for our veterans and their families. So why are veterans' spouses and their children being punished when the Minister of Veterans Affairs allowed back to fund a criminal who is incarcerated for the murder of a policewoman?
Minister of Veterans Affairs.
I can confirm to my honourable colleague that my department has not changed its policy regarding mental health services for family members. If support to family members is required as part of Veterans Treatment Plan, they will receive that support. But if a family member is incarcerated, we will not duplicate services with Correctional Services Canada.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, this week, lawyers for the government were in court, trying to block a court order directing the lobbying commissioner to reconsider an investigation into the possible breach of the Lobbying Act related to the Prime Minister's illegal trip to Billionaire Island. This government has one hallmark, and that is ethical breaches, and then trying to cover them up. Why is this government trying to block the investigation into this scandal at every turn? What does the Prime Minister have to hide?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that if you take a look at over the last few years, one of the things that stands out is whether it's the Ethics Commissioner, whether it's the independence of the elections officers, any of the independent officers you will find on this side of the House, we respect and listen to the decisions that are made and follow through on them, unlike the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker.
I want to remind the honourable members, because when somebody asks a question, we want to hear what the question is. Just like when somebody answers the question, we want to hear it. And shouting across the floor impedes that right that we have as members. The honourable member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, it's easy to be cynical about the budget speech. Fine words about the importance of pharmacare, but only certain steps towards it. People need a full system now. And suggesting a study on universal dental care guaranteed to take years when we proposed a doable system that would benefit half the families in Newfoundland and Labrador right away. I've talked to many people who really need this. Mr. Speaker, will the government amend their tax plan so that money goes to dental care for the millions who need it now instead of a tax break for those wealthy enough not to need one?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we've said in the House before, we will listen, we will collaborate, we will work with the other parties in this House to see what is best for Canadians, and we will consider all options for what is best under National Farm Care. But, Mr. Speaker, I will say that unlike the NDP, we've done our homework. And when it comes to something as big and as important as pharmacare, we need, Canadians demand that we get this right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, last spring, New Democrats worked with the Liberals and together presented a motion with a goal to prevent and end homelessness for veterans by 2025. Now, veterans deserve action. In Vancouver alone, over 100 veterans are living on the streets, and sadly, this is happening across this beautiful country. Will the minister commit to working with us to provide this House a fully developed and funded plan to end veteran homelessness now?
The Honourable Minister for Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague, and I know she's fully sincere in this issue, and so is the government, to make sure that even one homeless veteran is one veteran too many. I can assure you in my mandate letter that's one of the things that the Prime Minister has indicated to me, that we have to make sure that every veteran has a home. We will work to make sure that this takes place. And I thank my honourable colleague for the question.
Honourable member for Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
As my first time rising in this Parliament, I'd like to thank my family for their unfailing support, my team for their extraordinary hard work, and the people of Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, for once again returning me to this distinguished place. Mr. Speaker, Indigenous peoples have a right of self-determination, yet there are many barriers that remain preventing them from accessing these rights. Would the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations please inform us what this government is doing to change this in British Columbia?
Honourable Minister for Crown and Indigenous Relations.
I thank the member for his question, for his advocacy on this really important topic. In August, the new Recognition and Reconciliation of Rights policy for treaty negotiations in British Columbia was signed with the Government of British Columbia and the First Nations Summit. Treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements negotiated in BC will affirm Indigenous rights without cede, surrender, or extinguishment. This will revolutionize the negotiation process with BC First Nations and accelerate self-determination. Right. It reinforces our commitment to implement the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and outlines the new relationship.
Excellent.
Honourable member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Clean, burning, liquefied natural gas is a fantastic Canadian product that we should be exporting around the world. Not tomorrow, yesterday. We should be proudly championing this great industry, as Canada's provincial and territorial leaders recently agreed unanimously. But our environmental minister's recent comments show he doesn't care about creating jobs or exporting clean energy, or he would be the champion for it. Why won't this government stand up for Canadian LNG?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, this is the first time that I rise in this 43rd Parliament. I want to thank the residents of Sudbury for having the confidence in me to represent them again in this beautiful House. Thank you. When it comes to LNG, Canada is well positioned to become a major player in the global LNG industry with proposed projects in the West and in the East. We have strong measures in place to attract investment while also reducing emissions. After securing the single largest private sector investment in Canadian history, it's clear our plan is working. We will continue to take action to ensure Canada is on track to become the world's cleanest producer of LNG and reach global markets. Merci, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Regina Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, today is Friday the 13th. Namesake of one of the longest-running horror movie franchises in history. And it can't help but to remind me of the Liberals' No More Pipelines bill and its effect on the Western Canadian resource sector. Will the Liberal government amend Bill C-69 so pipeline projects stop disappearing like teenagers in a bad horror movie?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The legislation that was there before was called CIA 2012, and everybody in the energy sector wanted it changed. Why? No projects was moving ahead, and if they were, there was duplications and delays. With Bill C-69, the Impact Assessment Act, it is clear there will be one review for one project. The mining industry is supportive of this act. We are discussing with the provinces to make sure that as we implement it, we hear the concerns and we move forward in the right way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, many people in my riding of Edmonton Mill Woods and right across Alberta are hurting. In fact, unemployment rates amongst young men is approaching 20%, something that we haven't seen in almost 40 years. And we are in this crisis because of Liberal policies like C-69. Yet the Liberals have refused to make changes to their No More Pipelines bill. When will the Liberals make changes to C-69 that will help Albertans and all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Innovations.
The member opposite full well knows with respects to investments in Alberta, we've seen the production and the advancement of the TMX file, which has created 2,200 good, well-paying jobs that have already started. And also, I want to highlight the fact that we've made significant investments in Interpipeline and the CKPC, a $100 million investment which will help create 400 jobs and at the same time establish 4,000 new construction jobs as well. These are the types of investments we continue to make while they talk down the economy, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has promised to listen really hard to Western Canada. I'm wondering if he's heard this resounding scream of 180,000 lost jobs, the squealing tires of $100 billion of investment leaving this country, or the alarm bells ringing as resource producers are forced to accept a value for a resource far below world price, all because of this government's inaction. Will the government take out its earplugs and recognize that their approach to building energy infrastructure in Canada, embodied in Bill C-69, is fatally flawed and amend this dreadful bill?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, under our government, we've secured the single largest private sector investment in Canadian history with LNG Canada. It's going to create 10,000 jobs. We did the hard work necessary on TMX. Again, the pipes are in the ground right now, creating over 4,000 jobs in Alberta alone. We unlocked over $8 billion in petrochemical investments in the greater Edmonton region, creating another hundreds of jobs. We've approved the Line 3 replacement project, and it is online and in service here on the Canadian side. We will continue working hard for the energy sector and creating those great jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Avignon, La Matisse, Matane, Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, Quebec's Premier, François Legault, will be meeting with the Prime Minister in a few hours. As a reminder, during the election campaign, Mr. Legault wanted Quebec's environmental laws to be applied at all times, even for federal projects.
But during the first week of Parliament, the government voted against this legitimate request from Quebec. Mr. Speaker, how will the Prime Minister justify such an affront to Quebec to Mr. Legault? And why is he refusing to give precedence to the most rigorous environmental legislation? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for her question. We are working in a constructive manner with all provinces and territories of Canada. Environmental issues are both federal and provincial jurisdiction, but we're working together on these issues. We're continuing to work with all members of this House and all provinces to fight climate change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, here's a reminder for the Prime Minister before he meets with the Premier later today, Quebec Premier. During the election campaign, Mr. Legault demanded that the federal government respect Quebec's jurisdiction. He wanted an unconditional right to withdrawal with full financial compensation every time the federal government meddles with our provincial jurisdiction. But the throne speech is rife with interference. If you delete these bits, the entire text would fit into a Christmas card. How could the Prime Minister justify telling Mr. Legault that he wants to decide everything, even when he lacks the expertise? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, of course, the Prime Minister and the Premier Legault will have a wonderful conversation today. One of the points on the agenda will certainly be the importance of supporting NAFTA so we can protect jobs across Quebec and the country, and we'll be working on several common priorities. Thank you.
For Essex. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week I heard from Laura, who's a greenhouse grower in my riding. She said, I was paying the farm gas bill today. I noticed the federal carbon tax was even more than the HST. Also, the HST is calculated after the carbon tax, so we are being taxed twice. Carbon tax should not be taxed at our HST. The Liberals have spent the last 4 years making life harder and more unaffordable for Canadians. Simple question. Why are the Liberals making Canadians like Laura pay a tax on a tax?
Parliamentary Secretary. First question. Our government knows that Canadian farmers are part of the climate change solution. That is why our pollution pricing policy reflects the realities of Canada's agricultural industry, and both gasoline and diesel fuels for on-farm use will be exempted from pricing pollution under the federal backstop. We will continue to work with our experts and stakeholders on the best ways to cut pollution and support farmers to ensure that we get this right, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, farmers across Western Canada are being forced to pay a carbon tax to dry their crops after a wet and difficult harvest. Many of those farmers are drying canola and still have no timeline when they will be able to sell their product to China, our largest export market for canola. What a shame. Can the Minister of Agriculture tell Canadian farmers what plan they have, if any, to restore market access to China, and tell this House if the government will immediately remove the carbon tax from cost of drying their grain?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Once again, we are working with the canola producers and their representatives to make sure that we make the right moves, and we work in collaboration with the provinces as well. We're working hard to diversify the markets. We are having technical discussions between CFI and the Chinese officials. We have the Ambassador Barton who is in the field working very hard as well. So you can be sure, Mr. Speaker, that we are taking this very seriously. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal record on the economy is one of higher taxes, massive deficit spending, and rising job losses. Recent numbers from Stats Canada show that since the imposition of the federal carbon tax in my province of Saskatchewan, job losses have increased. Mr. Speaker, why do the Liberals claim they want to listen to Saskatchewan while they are taking active steps to hurt us with a carbon tax meant to destroy our economy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Let's be clear, Canadians voted for climate action. We've got a credible and affordable plan with over 50 measures to cut pollution, support clean growth, and make life more affordable for Canadians. We put a price on carbon pollution because it's a cost-effective way to cut emissions and create good jobs while leaving a majority of families better off, Mr. Speaker. Fighting climate change shouldn't be a partisan issue, and we look forward to working with all members of this House to advance our carbon reduction targets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our energy sector has a long history of creating prosperity and opportunity for Canadians.
However, this sector has been going through the most difficult time, which has caused stress and hardship for workers, families, and communities. I know our government has made market access, especially access to new markets, a priority so we can support the hardworking Canadians in the energy sector. Can the Minister of Natural Resources please update the House on projects underway in Canada that will increase market access?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable member from Etobicoke Lakeshore for his very important question. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, the Minister was in Atchison, Alberta, to mark a very important milestone, the beginning of construction on the Spread 1 of the Trans Mountain Expansion Project. On top of this, the Canadian portion of the Line 3 replacement project, which our government approved, came online at the beginning of December. Mr. Speaker, this is very good news for workers in our energy sector and for all Canadians. These projects are proof of what happens when we do the hard work necessary to move forward in the right way every step of the way. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Simcoe Gray.
Mr. Speaker, tragically, on Canadian Forces baseboard and in my riding, there were recently 2 suicides. The Minister of Defence once said, "One suicide is too many." I agree. There are 3,000 plus families rotating through Borden. Families struggle to find access to primary care and psychiatry services. The CAO of my local hospital has offered to bring psychiatry services to the base with support from this federal government. So I ask the Minister, is he open to listening to creative local solutions to help soldiers who need psychiatry services?
Great question. Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, one suicide is too many when it comes to our Canadian Armed Forces members. We are investing in our mental health services with a joint suicide prevention strategy with the Minister of Veterans Affairs. And yes, I am open to not only your member opposite, but all members of this House for any ideas that they might have to making sure that we provide the right support to our veterans. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, I recently met with the Dufferin Federation of Agriculture, all hardworking farmers in my riding. They are suffering from a lack of market access for soybean and canola as a result of unresolved trade disputes. In the U.S., the government is stepping up with the $28 billion program, Market Facilitation Program. Other than words like, "we stand with" or "we always support," what is this government actually doing to support soybean and canola farmers?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We stand with our partners and the farmers because this is very important. It is a priority for us. I spend a lot of time talking to stakeholders and farmers themselves. We have a strategy that we have developed with them to reopen the market in China and diversify our market. Next week, I will be meeting with the ministers of agriculture from the provinces and the territories because we are committed to improve our business risk management programs as well because we know the risks have changed through the recent years in terms of climate, in terms of trade, and we are committed to improve the business risk management suite. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, across Canada, concerns are rising about the Liberals' focus on legal firearms owners versus efforts to stop gangs and guns. The Liberals are proposing a gun buyback program that could cost billions of dollars, much more than they've spent actually combating gang crime. The members of clubs like the Napanee Rod and Gun Club and the Bancroft Fish and Game Club worry that the Liberals will target them instead of actual criminals. Can the government explain how their approach will be effective when we know that existing laws are not even being followed by criminals?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to thank the member opposite for the question and give him the opportunity to understand some of the significant investments our government has actually made in combating guns and gang violence. We have allocated and dispersed to the provinces right across Canada $347 million to invest in policing and in our courts to ensure that people who are engaged in violent criminal activity with guns are held to proper account. We've made significant investment in policing, but we also know that if we are going to keep our communities safe, we have to ensure that our gun control laws keep guns out of the hands of criminals. We are prepared to act to keep communities safe.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, our government made a commitment 4 years ago to invest in Canadians and their communities. And for 4 years, that's exactly what we did. Canadians across the country have, including the people from Mississauga Lakeshore, benefited from our government's investments, including investments in public transit and clean water systems. Now that he's returned to this House, can the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities please provide an update on the government's infrastructure plan moving forward? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his question. And I'm very proud to be managing the government's infrastructure plan, a plan that allowed us to approve more than 48,000 projects and that improves the lives of Canadians, also with public transit projects and affordable housing. But we're just getting started, Mr. Speaker. In the coming years, we're going to focus on this success and invest in sustainable projects that are essential to the future of our country while making our country more resilient to climate change. Thank you.
For Hamilton Centre.
When asked about the constructive dismissal of senior anti-racism expert Manjot Bains for her work on, wait for it, anti-racism, the minister said employees work under a specific code of conduct. And Ms. Bains says that she would have been required to take loyalty training in order to keep her job. Loyalty training. She was reportedly constructively dismissed for sharing her disappointment in the Prime Minister for his multiple displays of brown and blackface. How can this government dismantle white supremacy when their own anti-racism experts can't even talk about it publicly?
Yes. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I thank my member opposite for the very, very important question. Mr. Speaker, as a white, straight, cisgendered male, I acknowledge my own privilege. I have never and will never experience racism, bigotry, or homophobia. Darkening your face, regardless of the context or the circumstances, is always unacceptable because of this racist history and the practice. We in this House have a mutually held obligation, every member, to continue to work hard towards a racism-free society in Canada. Thank you for the important question.
And that's all the questions for today. But while I have your attention, I want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And more importantly, j'aimerais vous remercier.
I would like to thank you for the gift of allowing me the honor to represent you as Speaker in this chair.
Servant. Merci. Bonnes vacances à tous.
Have a very happy holiday.
Merry Christmas.
À l'ordre.
Order.
If you can hear my voice, please say shh. I just want to remind the honourable members that we do have to continue business until 2:30 this afternoon. I it's wonderful to see you all getting along and shaking hands and wishing each other Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. But if you don't mind just taking it to the lobbies or even in the hallway and give yourselves hugs there, and do it quietly if you don't mind. I believe we have a point of order from New Westminster Burnaby. The Honourable Member.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a question or a point of privilege that I wish to raise, and I will do it as briefly as possible. It is something that was raised yesterday during question period, and I will come back to this in a moment. It's a first routine proceeding since yesterday's question period.
Appreciate the opportunity to present this question of privilege today. And as I know you are very, very well aware, Mr. Speaker, this House has the power to punish contempt, which explicitly includes disobeying an order of this House. And I will cite House of Commons Procedure and Practice, page 81, that reads in this way, quote, any disregard of or attack on the rights, powers, and immunities of the House and its members, either by an outside person or body or by a member of the House, is referred to as a breach of privilege and is punishable by the House. There are, however,